Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. He didn't notice the fog at first. The road home curved through low pine and scrub, a black ribbon he could drive in his sleep. The town limits were 3 miles behind him. The final turn to his street was just ahead, past the old feed store with the caved-in roof. The sky had gone the color of a bruise, evening smearing itself across the windshield, and the only sounds were tires humming and the faint tick of a loose coin in the cup holder. Then the air changed, thickened, like he'd driven into breath. He blinked. The shoulder blurred, trees softened at the edges and slid backward into milk. He eased off the gas and leaned forward, as if getting his face closer to the glass might press the world back into focus. It didn't. The beams from his headlights caught suspended flecks, a slow galaxy of drifting white that turned the high beams into a wall. He told himself it was only fog. The coast did this sometimes, but the part of him that still moved like a child at the sound of boots on the porch, the part that had rules carved into it, had already begun counting. 1, 2, 3. The siren came in at 4. Not loud at first, far away. A single ascending note that slid under his ribs and lifted the hair along his forearms. It didn't sound like town tests or weather warnings. It sounded hollow, a tunnel of metal with wind trapped inside. He felt it in his teeth. His foot found the brake without asking. His heart decided for him. Faster. He could hear it more than he could feel it. Thick and drum-heavy, a hand beating the inside of his throat. He reached for the radio, thumb fumbling a preset, and found only static. Under it, something whispered like a breath being dragged across a microphone. "Keep driving," he thought. "You are minutes away. Do not stop out here." The phone lit in the cup holder, buzzing itself toward the gear shift. Unknown number. He didn't want unknown anything. He snatched it up, swiped. "Hello?" His voice sounded too bright in the car, too human. A hiss. Then the shape of a woman's voice, words stretched thin as thread.
"Home. Inside. Close."
A click like someone putting a finger over the receiver. The call ended. He stared at the screen. The siren lifted, found a second voice inside itself, the way wind finds a second pitch at a broken window. The road felt narrower. The fog thickened. The world a white tunnel with wet walls. The pine silhouettes vanished completely, and the feed store sign never rose out of the gray where it should have been. The dashboard lights seemed too bright and then too dim, as if the car couldn't decide what the dark was doing. He swallowed. His throat tasted like pennies. Rules, he remembered. He could hear them in a man's voice that wasn't his, older, stern even in kindness. Close the blinds, lock the doors, hide when the sirens go off. He didn't know why that voice belonged to the town any more than he knew why it lived inside him. He only knew he had believed it when he was a boy, and he believed it now. The engine coughed. He listened, frozen. The RPM needle bobbed. He pressed the gas. Nothing. The engine stuttered as if someone outside had flicked a switch, not off, but wrong. He tried again. The car answered with a thin whine, a sound like metal being asked to sing. "No," he said, though there was no one to hear it. He tapped the brake and the ABS pulsed under his foot. The car slowed to a crawl through whiteness that held the shape of the world away from him. The siren got closer. It wasn't a single horn, but layers, a choir of mechanical throats, each a different size, each rising and falling out of time with the others so that the sound bent and frayed. He felt it beating the air, shivering the steering wheel. His breath fogged the inside of the windshield and didn't clear. He guided the car onto what he hoped was the shoulder and shifted into park. The engine shuddered. The headlights flickered once, as if blinking, and died. The dashboard went black. The silence inside the car was immediate and absolute, the kind of silence that made him think of closets and basements, not peace. Outside, the fog pressed close enough to see itself breathe. He tried the ignition again. Click, dead. His hands had gone slick. He wiped them on his jeans, wiped again, and felt how cold his palms were. His fingers ached, a deep hurt in the knuckles like he'd been outside for hours. He rubbed them together. They made a dry paper sound. Stay in the car, he told himself. Lock the doors. Hide. But the air tasted wrong. He drew a breath and it scraped his tongue, thin and cold and high, as if it had been stretched across wire. His chest tried to fill and didn't. It felt like he had forgotten how. He cracked the window a finger's width to steal a mouthful of night and realized the night was colder than winter. A lace of frost bloomed on the glass in a ring around his fingertip and spread, delicate and fast, threading veins across the windshield. He rolled the window up hard. His ears popped and then throbbed. Something moved outside the driver's side, close enough that the fog swirled in a complicated way, as if it were being breathed through by something with lungs too big for the world. He couldn't see a body. He could see suggestion. The void of mass where fog should have been. An absence with edges that were only mist remembering it had been touched. The siren dipped and flared. The car vibrated with it, the handle of the door ticking against plastic. He pressed both hands to the wheel to stop them shaking and felt the wheel shake under him anyway. He thought of his house, the porch light on a timer, the char marks on the back fence where he'd burned brush last winter, the kitchen window that never quite latched. He thought of the blinds and how he had left them open just a sliver for the cat. His phone buzzed again, same number. He answered without hello. "Don't," a voice said, very clear, very near, as if the speaker were behind the fog at his window. "Don't look." He turned anyway. There was nothing to see and too much of it. The fog pulled itself into the hint of a face, no features, only geometry, an oval with hollows, and then tore itself apart and came back together lower, closer, so close he could see crystals forming in the air, tiny stars collapsing as they touched the glass. The cold climbed along the door seam. His breath came in smaller pieces. The siren went from sound to pressure. His skull vibrated. His jaw buzzed like a tuning fork. He reached to cover one ear and realized he couldn't hear his own hand move. The siren had eaten that too. The pressure built and built until it had nowhere else to go. His right ear broke first. Heat lanced, wet and shocking. He gasped and the gasp failed. A warm line slid down his neck, ticked his collarbone, soaked into cloth. The left ear followed, a deeper pop like a cork driven inward. Both sides rushed with ocean. The world muffled, then sharpened, then became all siren. He tasted copper, he tasted winter. The fog pressed closer, curious as a cat at a fishbowl. The car rocked, left, then right, gentle, the way you might test if someone is awake. He squeezed his eyes shut and felt the lids go cold as frost kissed them. The phone slid from his lap onto the floor mat and kept buzzing, or he imagined it did, or the siren learned to mimic it. He opened his eyes to a window full of breathing white. The last thing he thought, the last clear sentence that rose and didn't break, was a child's prayer in a man's mouth. Close the blinds, lock the doors. Hide. He reached for the door handle. The fog opened like a throat and swallowed the car. Miley spotted the town sign too late to pretend they could push on to the next place. Harrow's Edge, Pop, 2183 stenciled on a white board that had yellowed at the corners, the sort of sign that made you lower your voice without knowing why. The fog had thinned to a gray veil, the kind that made the world feel further away instead of closer. They'd been driving since dawn. Caffeine was a sacrament none of them could skip. 5 minutes, Hedge said, already turning the wheel. 7, tops. Claire hugged her cardigan closer, though the day was warm. She had slept badly the night before. Bad enough that she kept mistaking telephone poles for people at a distance. Her reflection in the passenger window looked overslept and underslept at once. She watched the trees shrink and the roofs rise. The cafe was the only bright thing on Main Street. A bell chimed when they opened the door, a sweet old sound that didn't belong to the century outside. The air smelled like coffee and buttered toast and something baking with cinnamon. Locals occupied half the tables. 2 older men unfurling a newspaper between them, a woman in a postal uniform tapping her spoon while staring at nothing, a teenager with a cracked phone and a cracked nail biting the former with the latter. Everyone had the kind of stillness that isn't peace. Miley chose a table by the window on instinct for light and a view. The window glass was clean enough to show a ghost of her face floating over the street, hair scraped up, a freckle she'd decided to stop hating, eyes that always looked like they knew something she didn't. Hedge claimed a chair with his whole body and reached for a menu as if it might fight back. Claire went straight for the counter and smiled like an apology. The woman behind the register had a name tag that said Fallon. She looked 50 until she looked at you, then she seemed older in a way that didn't have a number. "Morning," she said, and made morning sound like a test. "What can I get you 3? 3 drip coffees, please," Claire said. "And are those lemon bars?" "They are." Fallon slid 3 cups under the spout, eyes never leaving Claire's. "Passing through?" "Trying to," Hedge said from the table. "Road trip, graveyard of billable hours, ash heap of responsibility, etc." Fallon said. She handed Claire the cups. "Sugar is on the bar. Bathrooms are for customers." "We are customers," Claire said, softer than she meant it. Miley brought napkins and a creamer caddy to the table. Hedge had found a postcard spinny rack and was reading them aloud in a museum voice. "Greetings from Harrow's Edge, where the fog makes us late but never leaves us lonely." He put it back quickly as if the joke had pressed back. Outside, the street was quiet. A dog slept under a bench with its nose under its tail. A truck idled half a block down with nobody in it. Even the wind seemed to hold a breath. Miley sipped. The coffee was good, strong and dark, and hot enough to burn her mouth if she wasn't careful. She half listened to Hedge monologuing about how all small towns smell like the same two pies, and half watched the postal woman's spoon keep an even, metronomic tap in her saucer. It was going to be one of those days that fold in on themselves unless you do something decisive. 10 minutes, she bargained. Then we push onto the highway before the back roads add another hour. 10 minutes, Hedge agreed, already unwrapping a lemon bar. He slid a piece to Claire without looking, a habit as old as the three of them. So, what are we thinking for lunch? A diner with a bell that rings when your order is ready, or finally surrendering to gas station egg salad and dying nobly? He chewed. This is stupidly good. Claire lifted her cup but didn't drink. Through the window, she watched fog gather in the low places, between parked tires, along the gutter. Nothing to remark on, just the weather being itself. And yet, the hairs along her forearms rose the way they do when you cross a threshold and don't know you've crossed it. From the mounted radio above the counter, a voice cut a sweet song in half. A stutter of static. Then a tone, high, thin, the prelude to a message. Every head in the cafe turned. Fallon didn't look up. She reached under the counter with the certainty of muscle memory and palmed a small device. She set it on the counter, a battered remote, red button worn to a dark blot, and didn't press it. The postal woman's spoon stopped tapping. The tone repeated. This time it dug like a needle behind Claire's eyes. "What's that?" Hedge started to say, but the room answered without him. Chairs scraped. Cups were abandoned, some midair. The teenager at the corner table stood so fast, her chair collapsed and skittered. Someone drew the blinds on the door with a snap that sounded like a bone. "Get away from the glass," a man said, not loud but not asking. The bell over the door trembled, as if remembering something. Miley half stood, hand on her cup, confusion stepping through her like cold water. "What's—" Fallon finally looked at them directly, gaze like the weight of a hand on the back of the neck. "Move," she said. "Away from the windows. Now." Hedge opened his mouth in reflex to the word now. He closed it when the floor ticked. At first it was nothing more than a soft knock from somewhere below them, like pipes adjusting to a change in weather. Then it came again, not a knock, a step. Something heavy placed itself on the earth, and the earth resettled around it. The coffee on the table made a small ring and then a larger one. Jurassic Park, Miley thought absurdly, because some things lodge in you from childhood and pop out when reality bends. The surface shivered. The spoon in the creamer caddy rattled a tiny march. The hum moved through her bones like a chord. Fallon hit the red button. The overhead lights dimmed to half. A second tone joined the first, lower, and the two together braided into a sound that was not a sound so much as a command for the body to obey. Down, hide, close, lock. Someone turned the radio off, and it kept talking anyway. The voice flattened by the tone until it became only numbers, and then not even that. "Back," Fallon said again, already moving around the counter. She seized the blind's cord and yanked. The slats clattered down, splitting the day into strips and then into dark. "Help me, please." She didn't look to see if they did. Miley's body made the decision before her mind did. She and Hedge grabbed the blinds on the big window, fingers fumbling, the slats skimming knuckles, the string a thin snake. Claire backed away with her cup still in her hand, as if politeness required her to save it. The teenager crawled under her table and pulled her backpack in after her, as if a backpack could keep anything out. Outside, the fog deepened with purposeful speed, no longer a veil, but a slide. It pressed the glass, not a hit, not a knock, like the way your breath fogs a mirror when you lean in too close. Where it touched, ice branched in white veins, racing along the pane toward the edges. The glass went from invisible to visible, a sheet bearing its own frost map. Claire's breath snagged in her chest, as if snagging on the same pattern. "Shh," someone hissed, and the room obeyed as if the syllable were a law. The bell over the door chimed once for no reason at all. Fallon shepherded them with both hands, not touching, just directing currents. "Kitchen," she said. "No windows. Follow the line. Don't look out." Her voice softened as if to children. "Not even a peek." Hedge started to joke. Peek at what? Because that was what he did when fear tried to swallow him. He swallowed the joke instead when the floor lifted under his sneakers and set back down. Not a quake, a footfall again, closer. The spoon on their table hopped and settled. Miley's mind made new rules as fast as it could, away from the glass. Don't ask questions. Move like you live here. She slid an arm around Claire's elbow and steered her toward the swinging kitchen door that breathed heat and the metallic smell of pans. Hedge fell in behind them, longer strides gone small. Half the cafe was already inside the kitchen, backs to the counters, eyes on the floor. Someone clicked off the open sign. Someone else turned the lock and then turned it again, though it was already turned. The tone from the radio had changed. It wasn't a tone now, it was a siren, not blast loud, but everywhere. The sound you feel in your teeth more than your ears. The air trembled. The stainless steel shivered a high insect note. The hair along Miley's arms lifted, and with the hair a memory she couldn't place. A girl with a blanket over her head counting beats between thunder and flash. The ground thumped. Once, twice, cups hit tile and died. Something moved past the cafe's front windows. No shape, only the negative of one, fog folding around a mass too large to fit in a world with corners. The frost map on the glass burst outward and refroze in new directions, like veins deciding on a different body. "Down," Fallon whispered, and they sank without argument. Miley pressed her palms to the cold tile to stop the shaking she couldn't admit was hers. Across from her, Hedge's grin had finally run out. His mouth was a straight line, eyes too bright. Claire still had her cup, fingers locked so tight around it that the paper had wrinkled into ridges. She had not drunk. In the hush that followed the siren's latest climb, Claire heard it. A thread of sound woven under the alarm, not mechanical at all, whispering, not words, the suggestion of her name bent into breath. She looked toward the door. The building exhaled a long, low groan, and the kitchen's fluorescent bulb popped and went dead. In the sudden dim, the siren dropped half a step, found a deeper note, and the floor began to shake. The kitchen door swung shut behind them, sealing the cafe into two worlds, the one that might survive and the one that wouldn't. Heat from the ovens met the creeping cold at the threshold and condensed into breath that wasn't theirs. A single bulb buzzed overhead. Every sound, the scrape of shoes, the gasp of metal cooling, felt too loud. Fallon turned the bolt on the back door and drew the curtain across the small window. "Stay away from the glass," she whispered. "Stay still. They pass faster if they think we're gone." Miley crouched between a rack of flour sacks and a crate of onions. The tile was icy under her palms. Hedge knelt beside a stainless table, jaw clenched hard enough to squeak his teeth. Claire pressed herself against the fridge door, listening to it hum, any noise that wasn't the one outside. She could still hear it, though, that layered howl stretching across pitch, too high and too low at once. Then the floor flexed. Everything in the room rattled. Pots, trays, the bulb itself. A dusting of flour burst from a torn bag and drifted like fog made solid. Someone near the counter stifled a scream. Fallon raised a finger to her lips. "Shh," she breathed. The siren dropped to a hum so deep Miley felt it in her ribs. The vibration rolled through the floor, up her spine, until her teeth chattered against it. The air temperature plunged. Frost threaded the handles of the ovens. A mug left on the counter exploded with a dull pop. Claire's ears popped. Her nose bled a single red line before she realized it. She dabbed it with a napkin and found it already frozen. "Not earthquakes," Hedge whispered. "That's not Earth." "Don't talk," Fallon hissed. From the front of the cafe came a sound like wind finding its throat, long, dragging, almost curious. The cupboards vibrated. The bulb swung on its wire, throwing pale light across frightened faces. Miley's phone buzzed in her pocket. The vibration felt obscene in the silence. She killed the screen with her thumb before the glow could betray them. Her pulse refused to slow. She could feel every beat hammering against the cold. Something scraped the outside wall. It wasn't claws. It was weight, tons of it, moving with patience. A dent blossomed in the sheet metal above the sink, shallow at first, then deeper until screws groaned in their sockets. Flour hissed again as if exhaling. The wall bulged and eased like something breathing against it. The siren flared back to full volume. People clamped hands over their ears. The hum inside their bodies became pain. Hedge bit the heel of his hand to keep from yelling. The sound seemed to look for voices. A man near the exit broke first. He lunged for the door, voice cracking. I'm not. The lock snapped. Cold light from the fog spilled through the gap, thick and silver. Fallon screamed no, but he was already outside. The door slammed on its own. For a heartbeat, there was only the siren. Then silence. Miley rose, slow, unable to stop herself. Through the small curtain gap, she saw what the silence meant. A heap of clothes at the step, shirt, jeans, shoes still tied, steam unwinding from them like breath, nothing else. Her stomach turned to ice. She backed away, shaking her head. The siren pulsed once more, softer, almost satisfied. The dent in the wall relaxed. The temperature began to crawl upward, condensation dripping down metal like sweat. Fallon sagged against the counter, whispering something that might have been a prayer or a count. "They're moving on," she said. "For now." Claire wiped her face and looked at her hand. Her blood was gone, a thin line of frost in its place. Outside, the bell over the door gave one last faint chime, though no wind touched it. By the time the sirens faded, the cafe felt hollowed out. Every breath seemed borrowed. Fallon waited another full minute before she moved, counting under her breath like she was giving the world time to remember itself. "Get up slow," she whispered. "It's done. For now." The others unfolded from the floor. Frost still glazed the metal counters. Hedge touched it with one finger and pulled back at the sting. Claire pressed her palms against her knees until the shaking eased. Miley looked at Fallon. "What was that?" Fallon didn't answer right away. She went to the back door, laid her ear against it, then unlatched the top bolt and cracked it just enough to let a ribbon of fog curl through. It smelled faintly of salt and ozone. She shut it again. "We call them sirens," she said finally. "You probably think it's the sound. It's not." Hedge tried for a laugh and didn't make it. "We noticed. They came before the town had a name," Fallon continued. "When the mines were open, men started hearing things in the shafts, machines that never existed, music with no words. The fog began then too. People said it carried voices from under the ground. Whatever it was, it learned us. When it got hungry, it called." Miley shook her head. "You're saying this happens often?" "Every few days now. Used to be weeks between." Fallon looked at the floor, then at them. "We don't know what changed." Claire's voice was small. "And if someone doesn't hide?" Fallon only pointed to the heap of clothes by the door. Hedge exhaled. "Right. Okay. Monsters in the mist. Got it." He rubbed his temples. "So what? Stay till morning and then bolt?" "You don't leave during fog," Fallon said. "Engines fail. Power dies. It's their air, not ours." That settled like a stone in the stomach. Miley's mind was already mapping exits, timelines, gas mileage. "Our car," she said quietly. "If we can make it to the highway." Fallon's expression didn't change. "Try it if you want. You'll find it the same as everything else." Hedge's sarcasm faltered. "Meaning?" "Dead." They followed her to the front room. The air there felt thinner, strained. Through the cracks in the blinds, gray daylight had returned, but it was a dull, sickly light. Outside, the fog clung low, sulking along the street. Their car sat across from the cafe where they'd left it. Frost webbed the windshield despite the warmth. Steam coiled from the exhaust pipe, though the engine was off. Miley grabbed the handle, yanked, locked. She rattled it harder, nothing. The key fob didn't even blink. Hedge popped the hood release, dead switch. He stared at the car like it had personally betrayed him. Fallon waited by the door, arms crossed. "Told you." Claire's stomach nodded. "Then what do we do?" "Stay inside when the sirens call," Fallon said. "Keep the blinds down. Keep quiet. Pray it moves on." "That's not a plan," Hedge muttered. "It's the only one we have." A sudden crack made them all flinch, just the sound of ice giving way on the car's roof, sliding off in sheets. But underneath, Miley swore she heard something else, a breath, a long-drawn inhale that lifted the fog and let it settle again. She stepped back from the window. "We can't stay here forever." "No," Fallon said. "But you'll stay tonight. After dark, it gets restless." The word restless landed like a promise. Outside, the fog rippled. It looked almost like something large had just stepped through it. The sun never really set in Harrow's Edge. It just thinned until the light looked tired. By evening, the cafe was an island in gray. Fallon had closed early and locked every door twice. The remaining locals moved in small, quiet tasks, covering windows, blowing out candles, checking batteries by feel. No one spoke unless they had to. Miley, Hedge, and Claire huddled in a booth near the kitchen. A single lantern flickered between them, painting their faces in shallow orange. The smell of extinguished wax clung to everything. "This can't be real," Hedge whispered. "People would know. Someone would have filmed it, posted it." "Maybe they tried," Fallon said from behind the counter, her voice carried easily in the hush. "Maybe the fog took the signal before it reached anywhere." Claire traced a finger through a ring of spilled sugar, making tiny spirals. "So it's always been like this? Forever?" "Not forever," Fallon said. "Just long enough that no one remembers before." Miley watched the street through a narrow slit in the blinds. The fog was denser tonight, pooled ankle-deep and breathing slow. The air pressed against the glass as though testing its strength. She turned back to the others. "We can't wait it out. There has to be a way around it." Fallon shook her head. "It finds you in open air. Only walls help." "That's not help," Hedge muttered. "That's a coffin with windows." A low hum rolled through the floor, so soft it could have been her imagination. The spoon beside Claire trembled once, then stilled. "Did you feel that?" Miley asked. No one answered, but they'd all gone still. Another pulse followed, not a quake, not thunder, the steady, rhythmic tremor of something vast moving beneath the fog. The lantern's flame shivered. Fallon swore softly and grabbed the remote with the red button. "Too soon," she whispered. "They're early tonight." The sirens began before she could press it. Low and far at first, then rising until the walls hummed with it. The blinds rattled, frost formed instantly on the glass, crawling in frantic veins. "Down!" Fallon hissed. "Lights off." The lantern died. Darkness filled every space. The siren's pitch climbed higher, vibrating through teeth and bone. Hedge squeezed his eyes shut. Claire pressed her palms over her ears and still heard it inside her head. Something scraped along the outer wall, a deep drag, heavy and slow, the sound of stone against stone. The entire building seemed to lean toward it. Miley crouched behind the counter beside Fallon. "What are they doing?" she whispered. "Listening," Fallon breathed. "They know new voices are here." The temperature dropped again. A white mist formed with each breath, hanging instead of fading. Claire's hands shook. "I hear them whispering." "You don't," Fallon said sharply. "That's them trying to sound like you." Outside, the fog thickened until even the streetlights were swallowed. The siren warped, its tone bending in and out of itself like a dying signal. Then silence. Miley dared a breath. Hedge moved closer to the door, curiosity winning over fear. "Maybe it's done," he whispered. A pale flash bloomed beyond the window, bright enough to etch shadows into the wall. Claire peeked through a gap before she could stop herself. The fog rippled, and for a heartbeat she saw it. A shape too tall for the street, limbs tapering into smoke, face a hollow that burned faintly blue. It leaned over the cafe roof, the fog streaming off its back like wings that weren't wings. She bit her fist to stop a scream. The figure turned, head tilting, sensing movement. Then it unfolded back into the mist, dissolving until nothing remained but the echo of that impossible size. Fallon grabbed her wrist and pulled her down. "You never look," she hissed. "It remembers faces." The siren wailed one last time and cut off mid-note. The fog went still. No one spoke for a long minute. Then Hedge whispered, "We have to leave tomorrow." Miley nodded, but her stomach turned. Because outside, somewhere in that endless gray, something else had started humming. Low and steady, like a response. And this time, it wasn't the sirens calling first. Morning came gray and brittle. The fog hadn't lifted. It only looked thinner, like breath scraped from a mirror. Harrow's edge felt emptied out. Doors stayed shut, and the streets carried the silence of things afraid to move. Fallon let them go only after a long argument and a longer stare. "North Road's blocked," she said. "If you're set on leaving, head south till the highway bends. You'll pass an old radio tower. Stay clear of it." "Why?" Hedge asked. "It's where the sirens sleep," she said, and turned the key on the cafe door behind them. They walked anyway. Their car was still dead, windows veined with ice despite the rising temperature. The fog curled off the hood in lazy threads. Hedge kicked a tire and muttered something under his breath that the fog seemed to swallow. Miley grabbed her backpack and started walking. The road out of town bent between fields gone pale with frostburn. The air carried a low vibration, too low to be sound, like memory vibrating in bone. Claire walked last, head swiveling toward each whisper that wasn't wind. The radio tower appeared sooner than they expected. It rose out of the fog like a skeletal spine, red lights blinking weakly near the top. Chain-link fencing surrounded a small concrete building at its base. The padlock hung open. Miley stopped. She said, "Stay clear." "Yeah," Hedge said. "And she also said the car was the only way out. Guess she's batting zero." He pushed the gate. It squealed like an alarm. Inside, the air smelled of rust and wet metal. Old speakers hung from the walls, round, dust-choked things with no wires running to them. A generator sat in the corner, its switches taped down. On the desk lay a reel-to-reel machine still spinning, though there was no power. The tape whispered faintly in a loop. Claire leaned closer. A voice bled through the static.
Project Wraithstorm. Containment protocol breach. All residents advised to remain indoors.
The tape snapped, rewound itself, and started again. Hedge swallowed. Containment? Miley brushed dust from a control panel beside the reels. A faded label read SIREN Control. Active. Below it, a row of switches glowed weakly blue, powered by something unseen. She touched one. The glow brightened. The air in the room thickened. "Don't," Claire warned. Too late. The floor shivered, not with movement, but with sound, the same low frequency that lived beneath the sirens. It vibrated through the soles of their shoes. Outside, the fog reacted. It surged toward the tower as if drawn by the noise. Through the doorway, they saw the white sea rising, spinning in a slow cyclone. Miley stepped back. "We need to shut it off." "I think we just did the opposite," Hedge said. The speakers crackled alive. The same hollow wail from the night before poured through them, raw and unfiltered. Only this time it wasn't distant. It was underneath them. Claire clutched the desk to stay upright. The siren climbed, its note breaking into layers, the edges fraying into whispers. One of them said her name. A monitor on the wall flickered, static, then an image. The town, viewed from above, grainy and gray. In the fog, shadows moved, dozens of them, drawn toward the tower like moths to light. Miley slammed the switches down. The glow dimmed, but the sound didn't stop. The sirens outside joined the call, one by one, until Harrow's edge itself seemed to be screaming. "Go!" she shouted. They bolted through the door as frost formed instantly across the threshold. The fog boiled around them, heat and cold at once. They ran until the tower was only a silhouette behind them, its red lights flickering wildly, the sirens peaking to an inhuman pitch. Claire stumbled to her knees. What did we just do? Hedge stared back through the fog. I think we woke them up. The sirens howled as if the whole earth had decided to scream. The fog no longer drifted. It surged, alive, furious, pouring through the streets in white avalanches. Harrow's edge disappeared under it. Roofs, lights, people, all gone. Only the tower remained, a red blink swallowed and revealed again in the thick churn. Miley, Hedge, and Claire ran until their lungs hurt. The sound chased them, pressing on their spines, filling every hollow of air. Each time they looked back, the fog seemed closer, taller, writhing like something vast, learning to walk. They reached the highway's edge and saw it. The Jeep half buried in frost and weeds, headlights dead, doors open, steam rose from the hood like breath in winter. "Is that?" Hedge started. They slowed as they approached. The air around the Jeep hummed with static. A figure stepped from the mist, a man, face pale but alive, wearing a torn field jacket with a faded patch. Harrow's warning authority, blood darkened one sleeve. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. His voice was hoarse, like someone who'd been shouting into wind for years. "You were at the start of this," Miley said. "You called the sirens. I kept them asleep." He lifted a small remote from his pocket, identical to Fallon's but shattered. Button cracked down the middle. "The signal kept them bound. You woke it." Claire shook her head. "We didn't know." "No one ever does." He looked toward the town. The fog boiled higher, swallowing treetops. "They're drawn to noise, to warmth, to breath. You need to go." He pressed a set of keys into Miley's shaking hand. "This still runs. Take it and drive south. Don't stop until the sirens fade." "What about you?" Hedge asked. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that belongs to someone who already made his decision. Someone has to close the door. The ground trembled. A roar, deeper than thunder, rolled across the fog. Shapes moved within it, too large, too many. The sirens shifted tone, harmonizing with whatever crawled beneath the mist. "Go," the man said. They climbed into the Jeep. The engine coughed, then caught, headlights flaring weakly through the gray. Hedge floored the gas. Tires spat gravel. The Jeep fishtailed once before finding the road. The man stood in the rearview mirror, small against the rising white. Behind him, silhouettes unfolded, wraith-tall and luminous, limbs tapering into vapor. The fog curled around them like a crown. They reached toward the sound, toward him. He lifted his head. The sirens wailed in unison. The Jeep tore down the highway, taillights blinking red through the dark. The town vanished behind them, but the sound didn't. It carried on the wind, thinner now, but still there, a constant, distant hum that refused to die. Miley gripped the grab bar until her knuckles whitened. Claire stared into the mirror even when Hedge told her not to. Through the thickening night, she saw one final flash. The man standing in the road, siren lights pulsing across his face, fog closing around him like a curtain. Then he was gone. The hum followed them for miles. When it finally stopped, the silence felt heavier than sound. Claire whispered, "Do you think he made it?" No one answered. Ahead, the fog was already returning, thin ribbons first, then thicker. The wind shifted, carrying a faint, familiar tone. Somewhere behind them, far down the road, the sirens began again.